Hi, loves. Happy Tuesday to you. I am back in the Seattle area, and I've been reading this beautiful book, the Empowered Women series that my shaman gifted to me the other day. And one of the stories from these empowered women and her own hero's journey was really confronting parental expectations in your 40s and 50s and beyond, and maybe some of you before. And this is something I've been processing myself for years. I've been processing what I perceive as the expectations and the judgments of my parents, not only with my lifestyle, but perceived expectations of what I'm to do in their old age. In other words, to take care of them or to provide financially for their retirement or prepare financially for potential long-term care with their health, or maybe even to take care of them as a caregiver, and really kind of acknowledging these unspoken expectations and how to process them in alignment with the balancing of purpose versus meaninglessness, especially for those of us who are taking on this identity of a spiritual journey. Yeah. So one of the things that really came to me this morning and helped me to have like this huge release involving parental expectations is to sink down and feel what my own expectations are of myself in relation to their care in their old age. Yeah. So one of the things that I had expected was, for me to kind of have this sustained financial success of myself so that I could help them to pay off their mortgage. I wanted to help my sisters pay off their mortgages and just kind of create financial freedom for our family. And I know that although this feels like a reflection from my parents, they've never said anything. So it really always comes back down to my own expectation of myself. And the reason why I wanted to speak to you is we can really, I guess, deceive ourselves in the realm of expectation and fulfillment of our own expectations and acknowledging and accepting where we are right now by asking ourselves the question, if I were to remain in the space that I'm in now, let's say emotionally, psychologically, physically, financially, and in relationship, would I still be accepting of myself in the same capacity 5 years from now, or let's say 10 years from now, or 20 years from now? Because we're not actually fully accepting ourselves if we can't accept ourselves the same way in the future. Does that make sense? Because the mind doesn't know the difference between the now, the past, and the future. So I personally, this morning, was deceiving myself going, oh yeah, of course I accept where I am now. But what I was accepting was that I'm at where I'm at now with the added expectation that it not be the same in the future. Does that make sense? So what I want you to do now, if you're close to something where you could write on your phone or something, is just write down after a space of meditation. Hi, Jen. Good to see you, love. Write down what it is that you have been unconsciously expecting in regards to your parents' care. Have you been expecting yourself to ease their financial burden, to physically take care of them, to be there for in a certain way more than you have been able to? Do you feel that in order to curb their emotions or their worries or their doubts about you and to help them to achieve peace, that you have to do a certain something? Are you disempowering their ability to reach their own level of peace because you're attaching their peace to your peace, or their peace to your reaching a certain level of success? This is a time to really be honest with yourself. What are your expectations of yourself in regards to your parents? And so, writing those down, and what I want you to do in this processing process is to then ask yourself, after you've written down these unconscious expectations, is to ask yourself, if I were to remain the same, 5 years to come, 10 years to come, would I still love myself just as much? And would I still accept myself? In fact, if I were to be at this same level, let's say, of finance, or this same level of capacity to help my parents in some way, all the way to the end of my life, or to the end of their life, would I accept myself? Would I love myself? Would I honor my life as it were? Would I still acknowledge the things that I was successful at, the transformation of my inner being, the cultivation of healthy and conscious relationships, et cetera, because the full realm of the full spectrum of acceptance has to go in the past, present, and future, right? Because we haven't fully accepted ourselves unless it goes in on the timeline to the future, past, and the present. So that's the first exercise I'm wanting you to do. And then go through the process of accepting yourself in the future as you are now. Because we can't bridge ourselves into who we're consciously wanting to be until there's a full and utter acceptance of where we're at. And that means even if it protrudes into the future. We've done this exercise before in the realm of relationship, right? All relationship coaches say, in order to bridge yourself into the relationship you're wanting and the partnership you're wanting, you really have to accept the possibility of your singledom and just own that no matter, even if I'm single to the day that I cross over into what is really reality, that I'll still be empowered, I'll still live a beautiful life, I'll still have access to my foundational peace and happiness, right? It's this just utter acceptance of self. So that's the first step in the process. And now I want to talk about balancing this idea of meaninglessness and purpose. Yeah, it's this tricky balance, but if you can get it just right, it feels so good. Now listen to me. A lot of people that follow me are on this kind of identifying as themselves being on a spiritual journey. So I'm talking just specifically to you. We're taught in this community, in this law of attraction community, in this science of the mind community, that life is meaningless. Literally, life has no purpose outside of what you give it. Yeah? No, life has no meaning outside of what you give it. And so that can cause someone to have a great existential crisis, something that I've gone through myself, and I'm sure many of you have as well. Well, if life is meaningless, why am I, fighting for women's rights? Why am I voting? Why am I working so hard in this relationship? Why am I, working so hard at the gym on my body if life is meaningless, But in those moments where we're facing crisis, right? That's the first thing we go to. There's a cancer diagnosis. Somebody's has passed away, or perceived loss of love in your experience. That's the first concept we go to is, well, life is meaningless. It's not a big deal. So how can we balance that by balancing but I want to have a feeling of purpose, right? I want to feel like I'm needed and I'm wanted to be here and that my life means something. Well, let's do an exercise together, okay? So I want you to feel into the idea that this is a holographic reality, that nothing that we experience here is fundamentally eternal, right? That this is all perceived energy and a feeling-based universe that we're living in, feeling-based. Even this, right? Even feeling your hand in your skin or touching something, it's feeling-based. It's perception-based, right? For those of you who do plant medicine, if you did this same thing deep in trance, you wouldn't be thinking this was your fingers doing this, right? So it's all perceived and feeling-based by the mind. Okay, so we're accepting now in this moment that we're in a holographic universe where we're creating our own reality, literally, and that other people are creating their own reality, and that the world revolves around them. This is, I guess, a meaningless-based universe. But how can we bring purpose into it so we can feel that passion that we love to feel so much? And the trick is to bring purpose in with a sense of play. Yeah, with a sense of choice and with a sense of play. So, okay, I get that even if I don't go out and protest for the dolphins every single day, that the dolphins will still be okay. Because in reality, the dolphins aren't real. In reality, this body isn't even real. You know what I'm saying? But does that feeling of passion and helping, and being of service, does that make me feel good? And does that make me feel like I want to be here and really anchor myself in this reality and ground myself here and like play full out whilst I'm here, whilst I have chosen to have this virtual reality as my experience? So how can you go back into playfulness? I've met someone that was a woman studying to be a priest in the Catholic faith. Yes, even though that's like not a thing in a lot of places still. And she started studying the science of mind, which basically completely deconstructed her reality, right? It completely deconstructed her idea and her perception of God and the universe and Jesus, to the point where she's like, wow, I'm the one that created that there's a God. I'm the one that created this relationship with Jesus. But you know what it did? It empowered her. It empowered her to step back into, wow, I'm choosing to be Catholic. Right? I'm choosing to live this life and have this relationship with Jesus. And I love it. And it makes me feel so good. And she stepped fully and completely and utterly into this reality of that she's created as a Catholic and how she wants it to be. But it wasn't with the same energy as before. It wasn't this energy of this is the only choice I have, or I'm gonna, suffer forever in hell. It was from a reality of, hey, well, like I really just love to believe these things, and I love to have this relationship with Jesus, and I love to share the gospel, from a desire-based universe, which is what this is, and a universe based on choice and free will. Yeah? So how can you now go back to your purpose, the purpose that you've created, right? Because ultimately the purpose is just to really be everything that you are, right? That's really the ultimate purpose. But how can you go back to the other purposes that you've created in this human ego suit, right? Your purpose to connect. Your purpose to connect women with each other and souls. Your purpose to empower beings. Like, how can you step back into that role without making it a big deal? How can you step into that role without putting so much meaning and heaviness on it? Like, if I don't do this, the world is going to go to shit. How can you shift your purpose from I'm so needed, it's almost like codependent, to I just really love to help people, even though they don't need help, right? How can you empower every single being in your experience and still do what makes you feel really good? I love you so much. You're amazing. Mwah.